Welcome to Beyond Graves and Stars. My name's Andy, big horror and sci-fi nerd. This is the third episode. You don't have to watch them in order. It's not one of those things that continues. Thank you if you have listened to the previous episodes where we focused on the Candyman franchise. In this episode is the first of our original and remake comparison shows. I've got a very special guest this week, Ian Pointer, who is a graphic designer, artist, film nerd as well. Really into time travel movies, and he will be doing his own podcast around these at some point, which I will tell you about. But we're going to compare the original 1960 Time Machine with the 2002 remake. I had never seen either of these movies until I got talking to Ian. Originally, this was planned to be on my other podcast, ACM's Vault of Cult, but I've kind of wrapped that up now, and it fits into this as well, being a sci-fi classic based on the H.G. Wells novel, which I haven't read, but since recording this, I've started the audiobook, so kind of cheating, but got me in the mood to give it a listen. I will say it was great to sit down. Firstly, I don't do that often, I actually watched the film with the person I'm recording the podcast with, and then chatted about it after, so that was fun afternoon spent doing that. Hope you enjoy listening to it. We'll mention as well that Ian designed the logo for the podcast, so big thanks to Ian. And while I'm doing the thanks to James Howard, the Talking Sleeve, for doing all the music and interludes and stuff in the show as well. At the end of stick with us basically, because after the Time Machine stuff I'll be reviewing the latest Stephen King adaptation directed by Osgood Perkins, The Monkey, which is out as we speak, a new release. I'll be chatting to myself and you about that. So here we go. This is me and Ian discussing both of the movie versions of The Time Machine. Ian, firstly, thanks for joining us, or me, and inviting me to your flat.
You're very welcome.
Some people may know Ian from, he's been on the King Street Cinema podcast with me in the past.
Yes, I've been in that one. And
did we do a Vault of Cult as well?
We didn't do. Oh yes, we did. Yes, we did the.
I can't remember what
the Explorers.
Oh, of course we did. Yes, we've done the Explorers, and it was Back to the Future on the King Street podcast. We spoke about.
Well,
yeah, and a few other things. Firstly, you've invited me to your flat, and we've watched the film. And just looking around your flat, I can tell time travel is something you're interested in. Your DVD collection, lots of Doctor Who.
Yes.
You've got Doctor Who pictures on the wall, and Back to the Future. Yeah. Really.
It's very much a time travel den, should we say?
Yes. And this is a movie that we were going to do on the Vault of Cult podcast, because I'd never seen it, and that's what we used to talk about. Get two people, one had seen it, grown up with it, and the other hadn't. We never got around to doing it. I bought the Blu-ray.
You did?
Probably about a year ago, and we've finally watched it, and we're going to discuss the original 1960 hit movie.
Yes.
And then compare it to and discuss the remake from 2002, which, look it up, it didn't totally bomb, but it wasn't a hit.
It didn't bomb. I think a lot of people expected that it was going to be a revisit of the original Time Machine. It wasn't. It was a reimagining.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. I've seen it loads of times. But definitely this one is the most iconic of all sort of time travel films, I would say.
Yeah. Did you want to quickly, if you can, summarise the plot?
Yeah. Well, essentially, you've got this scientist at the turn of the century in 1899, just before New Year's Eve, and he has this curiosity as to where mankind is going to go to. So he's we don't know how he's developed the time travel, the time machine at all, but he has developed it, and he's trying to convince his friends that this is a very good thing to sort of to do for the progress of mankind. And as the story goes on, he ventures into the future, but he realizes that, and this is a very much a period of time where there was an anxiety of war and everything. So what he sees is a future that is based on the anxiety of war, and he's very disappointed with what's happened with mankind. So that's what I take from the sort of the premise for the film. And that the way that it's sort of narrated and told, it really feels like you're in the book, really. But that's generally my
Yeah,
take.
I mean, for my first watch, I haven't read the book. I think you said you read it, but so long ago you don't.
I can't really remember now. But
Yeah.
I do now want to reread it. So.
I'm definitely going to either reread it, but I'm not going to lie. I'm going to check on. I can mention Spotify because we'll be on it to see if there's an audio book of it.
An audio book. I can listen to that at work. Yeah,
exactly. Listen on a train or whatever. But what I thought was really interesting was the book was written in 1895, and don't know when the book was set. But this is set in 1899.
Yes.
And when he first travels through time, he lands in World War One and World War Two.
Yes.
So this is clearly, the a lot of political meanings behind this film, but it's an anti-war film in a way.
Yes.
And that so it's very reflective of the 1960s or late 50s into 1960s. It was released in 1960. I really like that because. With a lot of adaptations, they do adapt them, but they've adapted it well for the time.
Yes,
which I think really worked. I love the stuff. It's New Year's Eve, 1899, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I love when he's talking. You mentioned he's telling his friends about it. I love the different characters and the old-fashioned style. We barely spoke during the film, but you did say he's like Brian Blessed.
Yes. That guy. Yeah.
There's the who argues everything, the non-believer, the Scully to him being Mulder, which all of it worked for me. I think it was clearly big budget for the time.
Yes.
The sets look great. It's not like they could just film it in the 60s. It's probably done in the studio, but they all looked old-fashioned, and so many little nods to things throughout the film. For example, when he first gets out in the future, the way he looks at a car is so. Often things like this are forgotten in time travel movies because it's a whole new world. I think for me, it's best done, but it's a comedy effect. Have you seen Just Visiting?
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah,
no.
That's sort of Vikings go to the future and they're wowed by cars, but that's played more for comedy. Whereas with this, the little touches like that really help. I like that he lives across the road from a clothes shop and he sees the developing dresses on women. Now, this works really well. Obviously, that can't work in the book because the book was written.
Yes.
Then, but I think it works in retrospect, being made 65 years after the book was written. So that time period, it's not all guessing. Do you see what I mean? So they can do that and then you guess the future. Where in the future, it's completely different, but they have got quite 60s haircuts.
Well, yeah, it's a 1960s future, basically.
Yeah, and we're doing this as a sci-fi and a horror podcast, obviously. And there are real horror elements.
There are horror elements in it, yeah.
And it's still a PG, I believe. The DVD says PG on it.
Yeah.
For that time, this must have been quite a scary film, a dark film, especially at the end. I want to fault the film, but it's quite difficult to fault it.
It's an absolute classic, and the visuals and everything, and that fascination. I mean, we're talking, I was very, very young, maybe 6 or 7 when I watched it, and it really scared me when the Morlocks came in.
There's a shot. Firstly, there's a reveal to them because when you first see one, he pulls. Is it Wiener?
Yes.
He pulls Wiener away, and then the hero is he playing H.G. Wells?
Oh, I don't know.
Because it says on the...
I don't know. I don't recall that.
Because I don't think that... No, but when I looked it up, it said the character as H.G. Wells, which I thought was quite interesting.
I don't think so, but actually
that's it says on the cast here that he plays H. George Wells, so they refer to him as George in the film,
right?
Don't they?
Yes, okay.
So that's what
I didn't spot that. Yes,
that's what they've called
in that case, he's probably representative of that.
Yeah.
Of him, yeah.
But when he goes underground towards the end, and basically the Morlocks are under the ground, and they breed younger people for food.
Yes.
And lure them in. Because I love when he first goes to the future, he thinks it's all peaceful and calm, and then he tries talking to them, and they're kind of distanced. It's like they've gone back to being more
regressed.
Yeah. And it all works so well, and that bit. And lots of when you see the future reminds me of Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
And I think this must have really influenced that. I mean, the novel Planet of the Apes, which is quite different to the film, came out around this time.
Right.
So maybe the writer had seen the film and it sparked. I'm not saying ripped it off.
Well,
it's clearly influenced by it.
I would say so. Yeah.
And another movie that it really reminded me of, the opening scenes with all the clocks and being late and stuff. Back to the Future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which clearly, now I've seen this, I can spot where Zemeckis has done little nods.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole film.
Absolutely.
And I just think that works really well. And we'll go and talk about it later. But interestingly, Spielberg, I'm not sure, did he produce The Time Machine? Because he was down originally to direct it, the remake, in 2002.
It probably was.
Yeah.
I don't think he actually had much
to
do with it, but he would have.
He was going to direct it. But we'll talk about that when we get on to talking about the film. But this, such a well-made film, this, and for that time, you got to think that they these sort of movies would probably been small budget, B movies, so to speak. But this isn't.
No.
This was been. Imagine, obviously we're talking about time travel, but I'd love to have gone back and seen this in a cinema with an audience back then, because I bet people were blown away. It still stands up really well. You can see that some of it's models, but.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Well, when you can tell it's a model,
yeah.
I don't see that's any difference to telling something CGI.
Oh, to be honest, since so much bad CGI, I prefer to see a practical model.
Yeah. But really well directed, great cast. The director, George Powell, made Tom Thumb a few years ago.
Yeah.
Years before.
I remember seeing Tom Thumb. Yeah, he wore an acorn cone on his head.
It was on TV a lot when I was a kid. And The Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm. He'd done a lot of big budget movies back in the day. Just because, did you first see this on TV as a kid?
Yes, yeah, we recorded it on VHS. It was actually on, I think it was on about 9 o'clock at night, and my mum recorded it, and she said, well, I'm not sure I want you to watch this or whatever. And the next day she said, no, I've seen it, it's fine.
Yeah, you were quite young.
And I was quite young, yeah. I must have been, so I was living, so I was 7, I must have been about 7 or 8, I remember, because I was just in primary school. It really caught my imagination. And there's really those, and what you were talking about before, these iconic scenes, like the fact that, you got this mannequin that is the other side of the street, which is symbolic of the progress of culture. And you had that, and that thing really stood out for me when I was young, that fascination of him sitting in this chair and being able to just push the lever and just watch everything moving around and progressing around him, the candle going down. For me, the most iconic scene. Yeah, and
it's been done since, but probably not as well. I mean, it looked great. I think the effects in this movie just still look fantastic. I mean, watched it on the Blu-ray, and this is what I was going to mention, because you've got the DVD. Was the picture quality much better?
Better on the Blu-ray.
It was actually better
on the Blu-ray.
There was a few shots. There's one where he's talking to one of the teenagers in the future, and it cuts to the guy's face, and that hadn't been cleaned up as well. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah.
So maybe it's a different version, and they added some scenes in and didn't clean it up. But it looks, the effects hold up. There's a decent print of it now, or quality that you can watch it. And I'd recommend this to anybody, science fiction fans or anyone who just likes a good story. But how would you think, because of the pacing and stuff, do you think youngsters would appreciate it still?
I do, but they can't be expecting to be spoon-fed the narrative, let's say. I think you really need to. Now, what I would say is because it's narrated well, it does carry the story really well. Yeah,
well, that's nothing, because he narrates it, the main character. And sometimes I think that can not work in a movie, be off-putting. But it's done kind of simply. So he's just literally telling you how, and it doesn't try to make any quirky little jokes with it or anything. No. I watched a film recently, Neil Marshall's latest, called The Duchess, and I want to focus on some of his films. And he's done Dog Soldiers and his new one, and it's kind of ruined by the main character narrating it and saying things when it doesn't need to be said and trying to be funny. One of the worst things about that film is so good to see that you can do narration and work really well.
Yeah.
And I suppose that works as well with now we know that he is H.G. Wells, so therefore it works that he's narrating it.
But he also, he's not. Thing is, in the narrative, he's not actually. He is narrating to us, but it's situated in the film that he's narrating to his colleagues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's telling the story.
So it's believable that he's narrating it. So it's not like he's talking to us. So we've still got that kind of
it works.
view of it. Yeah, works very, very well.
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention the cast as well, because it's Rod Taylor in the lead, who I'm not sure I've seen him in anything else. You know,
I haven't seen him. I'm no doubt he's been in something. But
I mean, he was born in 1930.
What an actor, though!
He does it so well, and he lived to 84. He died in 2015. Interestingly, he doesn't appear in the remake when the actor who played Philby does. But maybe he would have been getting on. He might have been ill, or
you don't know the story.
It's good that he was still working, so maybe he was in something else. But he did. Yeah, he worked right up until 2009. It's his last movie credit. He was he had a role in Inglourious Bastards, the Tarantino film.
Right.
He played Winston Churchill, which is.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and.
Yeah, we're gonna have to revisit.
Just quick. Obviously, I don't want any dead air, but I'm just looking through his filmography. And there's nothing really. The Train Robbers, nothing. Not films I've seen. There's the ones I've heard of. But done a lot. Oh, he was in The Birds. The Hitchcock movie in '63, and he was the voice of Pongo in 101 Dalmatians.
Well, there you go.
So there you go. So great. People probably listen to this going, yeah, he's really famous, Andy. What the hell are you talking about? He was in Top Gun, but 1955 film called Top Gun.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, great actor. I think he plays the charismatic, and he's that hero you had in these old movies. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You could imagine him playing someone like Buck Rogers and stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, so well done, and all the cast are good, really. The Philby character who comes and goes, he plays his own son and stuff. I thought he was really good. Alan Young.
Oh no, his character is a real sort of signature for the film. You know, I mean, I can't do the Scottish accent, but he's like, all the time in the world. You know, it's that is my mum would keep repeating. I say, oh mum, can we watch The Time Machine?
Yeah.
And she go, all the time in the world. I say, no, I want to watch it now. You know, it's sort of that. Yeah.
Was it one of those movies that you watched time and time again?
Time and time again. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you know, I like anything that kind of has some sort of time exploration to it.
Yeah.
And you know, the different sort of time travel films. You have Back to the Future, which is very much sort of a change the past, affect the future sort of film. But this one's much more of the future as a visitor's destination. You know, is more sort of a curious future.
This one thing I liked about the character was he sort of doesn't care about the place. Like, that's done. I want to see the future, where the world's going, and he's obviously not happy with the world, and he wants to see the light. If that makes sense.
Well, he was disappointed with the fact even his best friends weren't really on board with his curiosity, and he's disappointed. So he expected so much more.
Yeah,
you know, that's what I take from it anyway.
Yeah, and what he finds, at first he's disappointed. He does point out with the way that the humans are acting.
The Eloy, yes.
At
that point he just saw them.
But then when he finds out, he relates,
and it's not their fault. And it is just like that's the way.
And he motivates them. He does say, "I'm not going to be the one to do this, but one of you probably can." And there's that scene where one of them, it's like he's clearly never thrown a punch before, and he looks at his fist, then hits the Morlock. And that's quite significant. And it's basically saying that, you know, we could all be heroes. We just need a bit of inspiration sometimes, which I think is a moral that it's good. You've got more in these old movies that there is a moral to it. And it is, the first half of the film is pretty much with, it's only just over a decade after the war ended, Second World War, and it's clearly a reaction to that and saying, what we do into the planet humanity. You know?
And the way they actually use that anxiety of the sirens going off, and then it's all clear, and then he saw that in one of the places that he stopped, and then he sees a future that is still based on that sort of empty philosophy where they're being manipulated. I thought that's fascinating.
Yeah.
What a great idea. And it's like no, it's not like that anymore. It's not. It's over. And
I think the whole thing as well with I suppose they're teenagers, early 20s, and then they're taken away and they become the food for the Morlocks. A lot of it is just saying, don't accept your fate. You can make of it what you want, which is a message in a lot of sci-fi, a lot of movies. But it's true, and it's kind of saying that, because they're spending their time just having fun, and then their fate, and it's kind of saying with your life, don't just enjoy your youth. You can do more. You can make more of your life.
Don't just be a sheep.
Yeah.
Go out and actually. I mean, we've progressed a lot since then, but the anxiety of the time, it's just like, you can be a society but still be individual.
Yeah. And what did you think of the character Weena, the woman he meets? She helps. Well, first he saves her, doesn't he?
The thing is, what I want to say is, like, none of the Eloi were good actors, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
They were, and so actually, no, I love her. I love her character.
Yeah, she went on as well to act into her 80s. She lived to 99. She died actually only 3 years ago, January the 18th, 2022. She lived to the age of 80. So she was very young when she made this.
Yeah.
And still working, and she was a writer as well, apparently.
Okay.
But yes, she's most well known for this movie.
Yeah.
But the character is, she's just she's drowning, isn't she, when you meet her, and no one helps her because I suppose they think, well, what's the point? She's going to die soon anyway.
Well, yeah, there's that, but also it's just that they've been conditioned to not have any compassion, not even for each other. They're just like the two guys just sitting on the rock watching her drown, and it's that's the way society had gone. And then when she gets saved, she just walks off, and then goes on. It's just like there's not even a thank you. They don't have that.
But it sparks something in her because later there is, because he goes out to get his time machine at night, and you shouldn't go out at night because that's when the Morlocks are coming. And she does come to help him. Yeah. It's like it took time to process that this guy's different. He helped me. I should help him. And then they form a relationship. And in the end, that's his motivation for going back there because he's met someone. I do think they slept together, by the way. I'm going to say that.
Well, we certainly didn't see that in this version, but
it implied because it fades and they're left there, and then the next, literally when you next see them, they're hand in hand skipping. It's like I think that was added in for something for the adults to think about. Nothing that anyone would think
about. Subtle romanticism.
But another influence for Planet of the Apes, I'd say, very Nova.
Absolutely, and what I was going to say with the Planet of the Apes, the Eloi are very sort of they appear stupid, right? Well, that's what the human race became in Planet of the Apes. Yeah. So I would say there's probably a mirroring of that sort of thing in that. I mean, there's a bit of time, not time travel as such, but there's definitely sort of a time aspect when it comes to Planet of the Apes. So I would say that there's a huge influence, and that divide. Where that divergent of different civilizations. So I would say that's definitely the case.
And another thing I like about this, I don't know if the book does, but it doesn't go back in time. So there isn't the whole, for plot purposes, you've got to realise how things have changed.
Yes.
Because it's all going into the future. That helps with, helps it less confusing, people wouldn't criticise it so much because they don't go back, and no one should criticise Back to the Future because it's pretty much a perfect film. But there are little niggles. People go, well, that wouldn't happen. You couldn't do that.
Well, that's the thing that you have with time travel films. You kind of have time travel films that are sort of about causality and then changing the past. You have ones which were certainly with the first Bill and Ted's where the future's already happened and you're going back. And you have ones where there's just kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen Primer, but that's a fantastic one. And these two guys develop a box where they can sort of travel back in time a little bit, and they don't know whether they're dealing with causality or anything. And so there's different types of time travel, but it depends on the narrative. The message in this film was where humanity was going. For me, that's what I kind of take from it, and I would imagine that was a very political statement at the time. Incidentally, in Primer, they hinted it as well that there's his cat is called Philby.
Okay, that's nice.
So there's always that. So and you can see things in there where they, like you said, with Back to the Future, they did that with Primer as well. They've hinted at the things.
Oh, that's nice. And I say it just is an hour 40. perfect, you know.
Oh, I
and
do.
it's got all this political bit. You watched it as a kid, and it's just entertaining as well. You can watch it as a straight adventure movie, which I think all the best films will have political meaning plot work like, because it's not in your face. It's not saying, you know, the same with Planet of the Apes. Why Planet of the Apes works. When that came out, people just watched it as a fantasy film. It's not till you analyse it that you realise what it's getting at.
Yeah.
And also with something like Planet of the Apes, the things it's getting at, the people who would be, if you said that straight message, would argue it, don't see it and can just watch it and enjoy the film. Which I think is great.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention about this one before we sort of start?
There's one more thing, the soundtrack.
Oh,
what
yes.
a great dramatic soundtrack. Now, I haven't been able to look up who it was that did the soundtrack, but I think the soundtrack, that really carries it. The way he walks into the room and you see this time machine, it just goes, wow.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
And actually, we should probably talk about the actual time machine itself. The music was done, by the way, by Russell Garcia.
Okay.
Looking at it, he's done a lot. Not just movies, but a lot of classical music. Around that time, he worked with Universal Studios and MGM, so his name is probably on loads of movies.
Yeah. Probably.
So someone to look up if you're into film scores, I'd say, because I'm certainly going to see what else he's done. Loads. His discography on Wikipedia, he's literally album a year for decades.
Do love a good soundtrack.
Yeah, and then a lot of jazz music as well. So
I like a bit of jazz.
Cool. So the actual time machine I think looked great. You should see it first by a model.
The thing is, I want up there, if you see on my shelf, I want a replica of that model up there, and it doesn't exist anywhere. I would have to fabricate it. It would be lovely, but it's just a fascinating model. It's great. I don't know. It's like whoever designed it was sitting in their kitchen, just sort of placing bits together like bent forks and a dish and stuff to make it. But it's beautiful.
And it's simple.
Absolutely
just
beautiful.
Just a lever. But yeah, when you first see it, he has a model of it. And
I want that model.
and he uses the model to show them how it works. Gets a cigar off the grumpy man, puts it in, and it disappears, and that's it going into the future. Now, one thing I did expect to see at some point, it might be in it, might have missed it, but I thought you'd see the model somewhere, like in the future.
I never even thought about that. I guess I never really. The thing is, it will never stop because it will always keep going into the future. So there's nothing to stop it.
Oh, that's true. There's no one
there's no one to actually initiate a slowdown.
But that scene is reminiscent of Back to the Future when they put Einstein in the car. Showing people how it works, and there's a lot. So much.
There really is. It's absolutely iconic. But overall, I would say it's my favourite. My favourite sci-fi.
As a kid, do you remember if you saw this or Back to the Future first?
I saw this first.
And you enjoyed this more.
I
know you love Back to the Future.
I love Back to the Future, but I tell you what, I think I saw Back to the Future 2 before I saw 1. I didn't really understand 1.
Okay, so
or at least that's the one that I remember seeing at the cinema.
Yeah, cause, oh my god! Of all the sequels to see without seeing the first one, Back to the Future 2 would have been.
But it would have been on, but I hadn't really sort of sat down and really sort of absorbed it. I mean, for me, these films were kind of on, but I guess I only really decided its place in my heart. After realising how good the second one was, I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I see what you mean.
So I mean, I would have seen the first one. First, but
but that's nothing I can imagine. In 1985, when Back to the Future came out, a lot of people would have been like, "Oh, this is cool," and they'd have recognised all these. Generation before us recognised all this stuff with the time machine. I hadn't really thought about it, and. I'd wanted to see this for a while, and I held off to because we always said we'd do this podcast by watching it, and I did not. First, I didn't expect all the influence on Planet of the Apes, and I thought there might be a bit of Back to the Future, but there's a lot. There's to the fact that there would be no Back to the Future without at least the book, or this story, let's say. So I bet you this really influenced Spielberg when he was younger.
Oh, it would have been. I reckon he's got 16 versions of the poster on his on his hallway wall.
And this is he's probably got.
I want to get one of the vintage posters to go up here. Actually, I'm going to get one to to come up here. Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me if Spielberg named his son Philby.
Yeah, Philby. Yeah.
He was a great character. We'll go on to talk about the newer one.
Yes.
It's played by Mark Addy in the new one, the British actor who was in Full Monty.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
And does a fine job. But the Guy Pearce is the lead, who plays the character's got
he plays name. Alexander Hartigan.
Yeah, and it is different because they actually at one point referenced the film.
It is different, but
But let's say his motivation's different to
his motivation for travelling. In Alexander Hartigan's motivation for travelling is to save his wife and understand why you can't change the past or change the fate of it. Because the paradox is he wouldn't have gone back if she hadn't died. Yeah. So there was a different thing here. The motivation for him with George in this time machine was a curiosity, and the reasoning for humanity was more of a political war thing. So I like both films. I think the second one, I think the remake, yes, it could have been done better, and maybe they had bigger aspirations when they did it. But I loved it. I saw it at the cinema a few times because I was working at the Odeon at the time, and I would. But anyway, but what? Because you've seen it recently.
Yeah, so I actually deliberately watched the remake first to give it a different take.
Yeah,
I have just knocked the mic over, so if you heard a noise there. So I watched the remake first just to give it that different aspect. And the whole, it starts with him, he's proposing to his girlfriend, and on the night he proposes, attempted robbery goes wrong, or a mugging goes wrong, and she gets killed. And then he becomes obsessed with going back to stop it, and then he realises he can't stop it, basically. So he goes in, basically hits a depression and goes into the future to see what becomes of the world. And the same thing eventually, different. The moon gets destroyed by our behaviour in the remake, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then, but then the future's the same. There's the Morlocks underground farming I say humans, but there's another name as well. And then he meets. I don't know if the character's called Weena.
No, she's not. No.
It's the same sort of.
It's the same sort of thing. There are still two different.
I think they've deliberately given the characters different names. I think Philby's the same actually, but they've given the characters different names because at one point in the future he looks up Time Machine, the book exists and the other film exists.
Yes.
Which is a nice little nod, I think. That might annoy some people.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's saying, look, it's the same thing happens, but it is different characters and it is a different take on it.
Yeah.
But also, I'm interested to, when I either read the book or listen to an audio of it, I wouldn't, is that romance in the book? This is might be.
Yeah, I mean, I need to reread it. I think.
But I think that works. I think the effect is very CGI, but it works. Yeah, I think it's 23 years old.
Well, I really, really liked those the visuals of him sitting in the time machine, and it wasn't just it's just a seat. It kind of raised and turned into this like sphere, protective sphere, and then he started seeing everything moving around him, and those visuals were stunning. I mean, they were great.
And the time machine just looks like a bigger version, really, of the one from the original movie. We haven't mentioned the director, who had only done animations before. He'd done American Tail 2 and a few others. I'm just trying to find his name, but he is the grandson or great grandson, I believe, of H.G. Wells, Simon Wells. He is the great grandson.
I knew there was some relation.
Yeah, and that's why when Spielberg was going to do it, other project, busy man obviously, and Simon Wells, who'd done loads actually up until that point. Prince of Egypt was a big hit. A big film. I don't know if it was a hit, but Prince of Egypt in '98. Balto, We're Back, A Dinosaur Story, and Five Goes West. Wanted to get into live action. So this is the perfect film for you.
Yeah.
Because enthusiasm. He done it, and I think when you think this is his first live action movie. I don't know if he'd done TV before that. I don't really know. But first live action movie, he does a great job. It's a big project.
Yeah.
working with fairly big stars. You know, Guy Pearce.
At the time, yeah, certainly.
Did he win an Oscar before for LA Confidential?
I don't know.
But he was, you know, been in Memento and loads of stuff. Mike from Neighbours as well, obviously. And Jeremy Irons, it's more of an extended cameo. But he's good.
A lot of people actually were disappointed Jeremy Irons didn't feature more, but I actually don't mind. He just played it. He's part of the end, you know.
He's, you know, but it's an important character he plays, you know. So I think he does well. And it's Samantha Mumba, who's a singer, I believe.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
I
don't know if she's still doing, but she. Yeah.
But she does fine, I think. And Orlando Jones, who's a big comedy actor, is in the future he's on the computer screens.
Yes.
Like an AI man. Really.
I loved that scene when because that's the equivalent of the Rings in.
Of course. Yeah.
Because that's where he gets his information. So he asks him. He says, "I want to ask you." What about why can't people change the past? He goes, because nobody can travel to the past, sort of thing. And then that's when he says, then tell me about the time machine. And that's when he mentions the H.G. Wells. Then he said, do you want to hear selections from the score? And he starts singing. There's a place called Tomorrow. You know.
Yeah, and he plays that role great, I think. And I don't know. I mean, just looking at it, it cost 80 million, so big budget film. It made 123.7 million.
Oh, that's
well. To be a hit, you need to make twice your budget.
That's true.
So, but that's not to be sniffed at really. But also, I will be honest. When this came out, right in 2002, I'd have been 20.
Yeah.
And I was studying. I'd done a BTEC in media, and I was interested in the film side of things.
Yeah.
But I was I didn't realise at the time, but I was a bit of a film snob, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to see this CGI, big budget, PG certificate kids film, so to speak. And I didn't see it until this year.
Yeah.
And I've missed so many films like that if I'd have just got off my high horse, I'd have enjoyed it. And both of these movies, I think, are perfect, what I call a Sunday afternoon film.
Oh, yeah.
You could watch it with your grandparents, your kids, everybody, and they'd enjoy it, like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of, and the fact they're both PG certificates. When the remake came out, it seemed like there was a point where there'd always be one F-bomb to get it as a 12.
Yeah.
And I think that was they do that for people like me, you know, who wouldn't want to see a PG, but if it was a 12, I'd go see it. You know, and I think if you look at the posters, it looks like it was marketed well. I don't know what it went up against that year, 2002.
Well, they released some collector's cards, which I've still got there in the attic. Some collector's cards for that time. They did release quite a few things, and you know, they did expect that it was going to be they'd do slightly better than it did, but. But yeah, it was. I thought it was good, and also the thing that you were talking about is his motivations. But he also was very curious about technology. And, you know, when he saw the car and he said, "That's amazing." He said, "It's a waste of junk. It's never gonna catch on." You know. And then Philby actually said to him, "Are we going to go too far with all this technology?" And he's like, "No such thing." And then he realised that you do go too far.
That's, you know, the moral is. Just look at it. 2002. I can't see. There's a lot of flops. Like Pluto Nash was that year. This would have done better than that. But I can't see Spider-Man. It might have gone up against Spider-Man. The film,
that would have came out at the same time.
Yeah, which is huge. Really, that probably dominated that year.
Yeah.
And then from what I'd read, I thought it actually made less money than what it did. Signs was out that year, and Rain of Fire flopped as well. So it's, it probably, if you were to look at that year, it's probably higher up than you'd think. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I think, I don't want to keep putting puns, but it stands the test of time well.
It does.
Very watchable, just over 90 minutes, which I think is good. If this was made now, I bet it'd be 2.5 hours. And
for sure.
The pacing's good. And both films, I think, are a film of two halves until you get to that. Well, it is kind of post-apocalyptic, isn't it? There's the adventure stuff, and then he gets to that, and it's him saving these people he's met. Both different endings, but he both ends up staying there.
Yeah, he chooses to stay. Yeah, no, it's the same choice. He chooses to stay in the future.
Yeah. Well, in the original, he comes back first.
In the original, he comes back, and then that's right.
Yeah, he goes.
But also, another thing I really love about this original, and it's always caught my imagination, is when the whole film goes in a loop. So you're seeing the end first, and then you see.
Well, you
what
think
happened.
you're seeing the end.
Well, you think you are.
Yeah. Because all the way through, you think because he comes back when they're having the meal.
Yeah.
That you think, okay, well, he's going to come back and stay back, and then there's that twist, so to speak, that he does go back to the future.
Back to the future.
And stays there. Also, the stuff about books, and they don't preserve them and they get destroyed.
Yes.
Is in both films. In both films, he picks a book up and it falls apart.
I don't remember seeing that in the other. Yeah.
Because you haven't seen the remake for
not for a while. No, not for about 10 years. But I'm going to rewatch it now.
And also, I think this works well because they're both quite short. You could watch both films in 3 hours 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So you could do a double bill.
Oh, absolutely.
And that'd be both of these films. I'd love to see on the big screen, but especially the original.
Oh yeah.
Because I love that era of film, especially sci-fi, and bits of it, even though it's a bigger budget and better made, so to speak, reminded me of the Hammer Doctor Who movies. With was it Peter Cushing played Doctor Who?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so it had the feel of that. And they were made a few years after this, and this probably
right. Yeah.
Because of the success of this.
Yeah.
Who knows? It might be because this film done well that Doctor Who went on TV.
Maybe. I mean, it's all the same sort of. Again, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan as well.
Yeah, I can see that.
Just looking around my flat, you can see that I'm a Doctor Who fan.
You all know, when did Doctor Who start?
Now, I don't. The thing is, I've only gotten. It would be.
It was 60s.
I want to say 63.
Yeah, so
if it was.
I reckon this did influence it.
Yeah, probably. It probably sparked an interest in sort of the sci-fi.
Time travel. Yeah, the first episode of Doctor Who. I've just googled it. 1963.
Yes.
So that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So and okay, so I think I meant to mention with the first film, at the end when he comes to the past, he takes 3 books, right?
Yes.
If that was you, what would you take? Yeah.
Well, there would be a political one, wouldn't there? There would have to be something about the progress of society. You'd get a science one, and you'd have a literature of some kind. I mean, I would take the time machine. No, that's what I would imagine it would be. It would be a variety. It wouldn't be like Enid Blyton.
or Free Lord of the Rings.
Could be Shakespeare or something like that. Yeah. Something that would actually encourage the progress of humanity.
I think it would be something to teach them with. Or it could simply be...
Or picture books.
To show... Or he could be taking... basically his favourite 3 novels that he wants to, like Desert Island Discs.
I like that. I like that we can imagine and we can think about that. It's just like what did he take, or what would he take, or and then the way that I can't remember her name, but his mate said, I don't know which books. Is it important? And Philby's like, probably not. No. It's just like, it doesn't matter. He chose what was right for him.
Yeah, and Philby's a great character because in both you can tell that friendship is strong.
Yes,
but he's happy for him, knowing he's gone off to do. You'll never see him again, but he's happy in knowing that. And I do like the he plays his own son.
Yeah,
which is very. Like in Back to the Future 3 when he plays his grand, is it Seamus? It reminded me of that. But he hasn't got a moustache, and
because it's the other way around. Yeah,
I think it would be brilliant if in real life we looked through pictures of our old relatives, they just look like us with bigger hair and stuff. But that's the magic of film. And that could have been played to comedy effect, like it kind of is in Back to the Future, but it isn't. It's done quite straight.
Well, I think also nowadays we're very used to these sort of time-related travel films, so we understand. We can easily perceive the progress of time and stuff in the films of today. But back then, the idea that you're seeing the same person but it's not the same person, that would have been really difficult for them to sort of grasp. They
Yeah.
say, no wonder he thinks it's him. You know, it's like he can't compute straight away that they wouldn't be him because he's not, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like I keep referring back to, it's a visual treat as well. You know, the sets are fantastic.
Yes.
When you see there's a scene with lava, isn't it?
Yes.
And,
yeah.
and like I say, it's a model, but it looks so good. The time and effort what went into that.
It's great. I mean, yeah, it looks like a Lego sort of setup, but it doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's wonderful. You know.
And there's matte paintings for backgrounds.
Yes.
I love that as well.
Yeah.
And you know, you got to think effects like that were being used up until the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, I suppose, when CGI sort of came in. And I think it's just beautiful to look at and very 1960s. But also, if this movie is a wise decision to set it when the book was written, as I said before about you can have that time where you know that's what happened.
Yeah.
But if it was set in the 60s and then they went straight to the future, it would have aged. Whereas this movie, because it's set, it's a period piece really.
Yeah.
I don't think it's aged much.
Yeah.
You know, a few of the hairstyles and whatever, but you know, there's none of that. If it was 50s, 60s, talking like James Dean or swinging hippies sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which was why probably this movie's remembered a lot more than a lot of other sci-fis of the time. It's like if you watch an episode of, say, The Avengers now, you're like, oh my god, that's so 60s. It's so.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I think really works for it. And also, I suppose you could say the same with the reboot. If that was 2002, you know, it would now appear like when you watch something like Final Destination, very of its time. So yeah, I mean that works for it. I just think it's a shame that the remake isn't sort of regarded as fondly as it should be.
Yeah. So whoever's listening, definitely give it a watch if you haven't seen it, and most likely you haven't. But I would say, yeah, absolutely watch it, and don't expect it's going to be like the. You know, it wasn't the cutting edge, but it was definitely a very good interpretation of the book, I would say.
Yeah, but I would also recommend watching it if you haven't seen it either. Watching it how I did, watch the remake first, because that way you're not going to be constantly comparing it to the original, which is a classic.
I see what you're saying.
You know, but also I'd recommend either of them. They're not long films. They're fun, but then when you think about it, there is a message in there.
Yeah.
If for horror fans, especially, no, actually both, because towards the end you've got the Morlocks.
Yeah.
Both of them look great if you're into your special effects, and it's done with makeup as well. You know, it's a bit CGI in the remake, but their faces.
I thought the Morlocks looked great in the remake.
Yeah, it's just when they're running and stuff, that looks a bit CGI.
I know,
but the makeup, which I couldn't. I'm not going to look it up now. I can't keep doing that. But I think it might be Stan Winston, who's renowned for horror films. And there's a scene where in the original you see some skeletons to show that they're cannibals.
Yeah.
In the remake, it's like almost like a river full of dead bodies.
Oh.
And I'm like, this is a PG.
Yeah.
But it's done really well, and it reminded me of in Star Wars. You know, when they're in the rubbish conductor and it's all wet and it looks like. And in the original, you see a Morlock who's been killed, and then he goes into the future and see it turn into a skeleton.
Yeah.
Which looks great still, and that sort of practical special effects is. I miss it. That's you get it sometimes now, but so rarely do you get things done like that. You know, effects. It would take them hours and cost them loads, but it pays off.
It did actually just make me think of this other film. It came out. It was. I think it was. I don't know if it was the winner of. I think it was a Canadian film festival. I need to look it up. But it's called Time Trap, and that mirrors a lot of what's happened in the Time Machine. And that's so low budget. I mean, really low budget. I mean, but it's that. Yeah, I definitely saw some Time Machine in that one.
Yeah.
That's maybe someone. But I'm just thinking of the way that it's influenced. I can go on and on how it's influenced so many of these things. But this is an absolute. Time Machine is an absolute pinnacle. It's a monument to sci-fi films.
Yeah. I just want to mention as well. This is what One thing I will say, normally I've got notes because we just watched it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have notes stop during the film when we watch it and just spurt out.
Well, we decided we just wanted to do it.
Yeah. But first I want to mention is Guy Pearce in the remake. He's been nominated for an Oscar this year. I don't know if he won one or not before, but a great actor. And I think he does the action stuff pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the emotional stuff, he's a great actor. And I think he carries the film well, as does the original. Do we say Rob Taylor? Rob Taylor in the first one.
Yeah.
And something that connects the two movies, Alan Young, who played Philby in the original, is in the remake as the person who sells flowers.
I am going to have to do a rewatch now.
Which, when I think now I found that bit of information out prior to seeing it. So when I saw it, I didn't think anything of the remake. I didn't think of the other. But I like that he's selling flowers because his character in the original gets the flower from the future and goes off to. So that's a really nice nod.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's so good.
And this is why another reason I like the remake.
Yeah.
Is it's clearly made with love for the book and the film.
Yeah, agreed.
And I just think sometimes people just don't want to like a remake. This is the problem.
That's true.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of bad remakes, but there's also a lot of good ones.
I mean, the Planet of the Apes is a sort of remake, isn't it? I mean, but that one's awesome. I mean,
the more recent ones?
Yeah, the more recent ones.
Yeah, because that's kind of a remake, but it's in the same world but different time.
It's like a reinterpretation of the.
Well, Planet of the Apes is a great example because I'd say the more recent ones are great, and even though I'm a fan of him, I don't particularly like the Tim Burton one.
Mm.
There's bits of it I like.
There's bits of it,
yeah. But that's a franchise that I might delve into another time, and if I do, I'll certainly be talking about this film.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm going to say as well, I know how much you love the original, but ratings out of 5 is what I do. 5.
I'll go 6. The remake, I would say, 4.9. It's not quite. It's not going to have the. No, I love them both. I love them both. I haven't seen the second the remake in a while, but no, this Time Machine. But it also, for me, it represents my childhood.
Yeah, and it still stands.
Saturday afternoon. And you said Sunday afternoon, sitting with my mum and my, after dinner, and it's absolutely. So I would say this is absolutely my favourite.
And it stands up because sometimes you can grow up loving a film as a kid, and then you watch it as an adult, and you're like,
oh no, not this one.
And there's nothing really in this film that you could say about the female characters because there's a Maeve, but because it's set in 1895, I think. Yeah. It's aged well.
But what about you? Ratings out of 5.
Well,
I know you are quite brutal because you've got so many films.
Well, I'd say the original 1961, as it's now, how old would it be? 65 years old.
75, 60,
65
years old. Yeah.
Yeah. Stands up well. Prime example of great sci-fi movies. So influential, I can't give it anything lower than 5.
There we go.
For me, it's a 5-star film. Yeah. And the second one, if you follow me on Letterboxd, I reviewed it because I watched it twice.
Yeah.
Once a year ago, but I was distracted with phone going off from work. I watched it the other night with phone off. Basically, I watched it like 2 a.m, so no one could. For me, it's a strong 3.5 now.
Okay.
Originally, I gave it 3, and I'm like 3.5, and that's prior to seeing this one. Yeah. But I think it's a top quality remake. And that's one of the reasons with this podcast I want to discuss remakes and sequels, because they often get a bad rep, and you've got to see them for what they are.
Yeah.
And often there's some good ones. As in prior episodes we mentioned, I talked about Candyman, and I was surprised with my guest who loves the first one and had never seen the sequels because he thought they'd be naff, and he quite enjoyed them.
Yeah. So I've never seen them, so that would be another one. You
should give the podcast a listen, but watch them first actually, because we do, as you know from this, we do spoilers.
Yes. So, there is. Sorry, spoiler alert.
I would say I'd have said that in the intro, so don't worry about that. But anything else you wanted to?
No, I thoroughly enjoyed watching that. I've just. We didn't even say a word throughout it. We're just watching it, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, which we might as well mention. I don't know when it will be, but we're going to delve into the House horror.
Yes,
the four movies.
Yeah, we've got the box set right in front of me.
Yeah, but you've not seen them all.
I haven't. No, I've only seen I've seen the first two and half of the third one, but I've got the box set now, so we can. There is four, isn't there?
There's four. Yeah. And that's just a straight franchise, and they've not remade it yet. So who knows? Maybe in a few years we will be talking about a remake of it as well.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining me. Thanks to everyone for listening to this part of the show. Anyway, I'm going to probably talk about a new film in a minute. So stick with this lovely podcast that we enjoy doing. So thank you very much. As I said at the beginning of the episode, I was going to go and see The Monkey. I've seen The Monkey, went to a late night screening at my local multiplex. Fairly busy, mixed audience, I've got to say. I'm not sure everybody knew what they were getting in for, but those who enjoyed it, like myself, really enjoyed it. Quick synopsis of the premise, really. I don't want to go into too much. I hate spoilers for newer films. I'll spoil the hell out of older ones, but that's kind of what we do. But this is about two young twin brothers who find a mysterious wind-up monkey. And things start to go wrong. Several deaths. They connect it to the monkey and dispose of it and go live their lives. They don't particularly get on, so years later they haven't spoken. They get back in contact because the murders begin to happen again, and then it all goes crazy. Based on a Stephen King short story, Stephen King himself has described the film as batshit crazy, and he admires it, which is high praise for him. Very obviously very talented writer, but often he has criticised adaptations of his work. So to come from him, that's pretty high praise, I think. Directed by Osgood Perkins, who last year released Longlegs, which was a massive hit. A darker film, more of a thriller horror. Got an excellent, slightly comic but insanely dark performance out of Nicolas Cage. One of the films from last year for me. Done really well, great marketing campaign for that. And I know a lot of people enjoyed it. I first became aware of him for a smaller film called Gretel and Hansel, which is dark as hell take on Hansel and Gretel fairy tale. It was good. I enjoyed it, but there was something a bit missing. Visually it was stunning, but one of those you could tell that he's got great stuff in him, and I think he's now coming to his own. The reason it's confusing people, I think, is they're not aware it's a comedy. It's a very dark comedy, but it is a comedy as much as it is a horror. Just because something's gory doesn't mean that it's necessarily not supposed to be funny. And I found this film hilarious. There are hints of that he can be funny in Longlegs when you look at some of the stuff that Nicolas Cage does. Some excellent performances in this. The two younger twins, played by Christian Convey, I've never seen for child actor. Could be his first film for all I know. For a child actor to do one role really well, but two, that's great. You don't see it that often. And the lead, Theo James, who looked a bit familiar in the trailer. I've got to be honest, I thought it was James Franco, and I'm like, what the hell? But no, it isn't. It's Theo James, who is known for the Divergent series, a TV show called White Lotus. I've never seen that, and he's been in the Underworld movie, so I will have seen him in that. Great performance, two dual roles. Not quite the legend performance by Tom Hardy, but it's different. It's more, to be honest, this one's more insane, and it's not based on a real person or real people, so he just goes with it. And yeah, you do forget it's the same actor playing two roles. There's some cameo appearances. I'm not going to spoil those. And a smaller role, but really good, by Titania Maslany, I believe her name is, who is in Orphan Black and more recently She-Hulk. Really good actress. She plays the mother in this, and she's one who's been on the sort of edge of things for a while, and I think needs that lead performance, because a great actress. Really good in this, really good. And she's going to be in Osgood Perkins' next movie, hopefully a bigger role. I didn't realise until a few months ago that he's actually Anthony Perkins' son, from Psycho, Norman Bates. Everyone probably knows that. I didn't. He's got an appearance in one of the Psycho sequels as a kid, and He was in Legally Blonde as her dorky friend. I forget the name. It's Dorky David. Yes, played him. So I think he's much like Peel, who done Nope and things like that, who came from comedy and done horror. Maybe Osgood Perkins will reverse it and come from horror and then start to do more comedy. But I believe his next movie is going to be another horror. Looking forward to it. This, for me, kind of a mix between a longer version of a Creepshow story and Final Destination, because there's loads of deaths in it. Loads of crazy, insane deaths. A bit monkey's paw. Instead of an actual monkey's paw, it's a the mechanical toy monkey, which the kids find, which I think is supposed to look funny, a bit menacing but funny. This is sort of movie that I suppose youngsters, it could really creep them out, but I just really enjoyed it. I had a smile on my face all the way through it. Maybe that's just me being a bit morbid, but the deaths are so ridiculous that you can't really take them that seriously. Over the top characters, well paced. It goes by just like that, and it's only just over an hour and a half. If you're a UK listener, you know the certificates over here 12, 15, 18. How this is a 15, not an 18, because it's so gory, is mad. But that could be because it's obviously comic, so you won't take it that seriously. I'm pleased as well that listening to an interview with Osgood Perkins, that first thing I thought of when I came out was Creepshow. And in an interview I just listened to, he said he loves Creepshow, so clearly an influence. And there was a trailer before for a new Final Destination for on-screen deaths. The bar's been set really high this year, so I don't know if Final Destination is going to come anywhere near it. I hope so. I mean, I'm not huge on that franchise, but I appreciate them, and I get that lots of people love them, and they're always watchable. But this is very watchable. From a mad opening scene, crazy soundtrack, really. It's kind of a lot of old school rock and roll, so to speak. And it ends with... what's the song? It's from Inner Space as well, the Joe Dante sci-fi film, Twisted the Night Away by Sam Cooke. That's the one. And Shirley and Lee, Let the Good Times Roll is used a lot, and in the trailer. Some of it, you could say the trailer's spoiled. This is a common thing nowadays, not plot-wise, but some of the death scenes and the action, so to speak, in it. So if you can avoid the trailer, if you haven't already, do. By the time you listen to this, it might even, things are so quick now, it might be out on DVD and streaming. But just, if you're a horror fan, get to it, go and see it. It's fun, and sometimes we're missing a bit of fun. I love the new Nosferatu movie. Everyone's going on about Robert Eggers, great director, but so serious that I need stuff like this sometimes. And for me, the director at the moment to look at is Osgood Perkins. Can't wait for his next movie. Get yourselves to see that. I think it was the last episode I spoke about Heart Eyes, another sort of comedy horror. That was, almost slapsticky comedy, played joke based basically. Well, this is just dark, not your Naked Guns. This is something else, to be honest. Get yourselves to see it. Go and see it. I'm going to wrap things up now because you've heard my voice for quite a long time. If you've stuck with it, I hope you have. Big thanks to Ian for coming on the show talking about Time Machine. I enjoyed that. He's going to be back very soon. What we're going to do, eventually we're going to go through, me and Ian are going to go through the House franchise. But before that, we're going to compare the 1987 classic RoboCop with the 2014 remake. We just sort of come up with that. We went to London, went to the Prince Charles Cinema and saw the original RoboCop and Total Recall, and that got me thinking both those movies have been remade. So maybe I should do podcasts on them, because I'm trying to do as much sci-fi as horror, but because of my personal taste I tend to go towards horror. Ian was like, well, I'll do RoboCop with you. So we're going to do it. That episode might not be the next one, but it'll be coming fairly soon. Also coming up, I have got Adam Wybray, a film scholar. You may know him. He's involved in several podcasts. He's been on one of my old podcasts. Me and him are going to be going through the Phantasm franchise. I've only ever seen the first one. He's never seen any of them. He has now because we've recorded the first episode. So through time, we're going to go through all 5 of them. He works as a teacher, so we're going to record one hopefully every holiday he gets, so it'll be spread out over a year or so. But I really enjoyed doing the first episode with him, and I'm pleased to say he enjoyed the movie as well, and he's keen to do all the others, thank God. And also, hopefully very soon, I'll have an episode comparing another 80s classic, Street Trash. There's a reboot sequel just come out. Haven't seen it yet, got it. Going to watch that with someone, and then we're going to have a show around that. Follow us on the socials. There's an Instagram page. There's a Facebook page. You can find me on Blue Sky as Andy, Andee Martin. You can listen to the podcast now on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, as well as its original home, Spotify. Thank you very, very much, and we'll be back very, very soon.